under their shared blanket, where they were hid in a shed. He had kicked them awake and told them to get. When they hadn't got fast enough, the bull struck Gage in the back of the head with his billy, driving him to his knees. The next couple of days, when Gage came awake in the mornings, he would say to Killian he was seeing double. Gage thought it was funny. He would sit for a while just where he was, turning his head from side to side, and laugh at the sight of the world multiplied. He had to blink a lot and rub at his eyes before his vision would clear. Then 3 days after what happened in Lima, Gage started falling down. They would be walking together, and then Killian would notice all of a sudden that he was walking alone, and he would look back and see Gage sitting on the ground, his face waxy and frightened. They stopped in a place where there was nothing, to rest for a day, but they shouldn't have stopped. Killian shouldn't have let them stop. They should have gone where there was a doctor. Killian knew that now. The very next morning, Gage was dead with his eyes open and surprised by the creek bed. Later, Killian heard talk at campfires, heard other men tell about a railroad cop named Lima Slim. From their descriptions, he guessed that this was the man who had struck Gage. Lima Slim had often shot at trespassers. Once he had forced some men at gunpoint to jump off a train moving 50 miles an hour. Lima Slim was famous for the things he had done. Famous to bums, anyway. There was a bull at the Northampton yard named Arnold Choke, some said was as bad as Lima Slim, which was why Killian didn't want to go there. After a long time of standing in the half-open doorway, he felt the train slowing down. Killian didn't know why. There wasn't a town ahead he could see. Maybe they were approaching a switch. He wondered if the train would come to a complete stop, but it didn't stop. And after a few seconds of losing speed in a series of quick, violent jerks, it began to accelerate again. Killian jumped. It wasn't really going that slow, and he hit hard on his left foot, and the gravel slid away under his heel. The foot twisted underneath him, and a sharp pain stabbed through his ankle. He did not shout when he pitched face first into the wet brush. It was October, or November, maybe. Killian didn't know. And in the woods by the train tracks was a carpet of dead leaves in colors of rust and butter. Killian limped across them. The leaves were not all gone from the trees. Here and there was a flare of crimson, streaks of ember orange. A cold white smoke lay low to the ground in among the trunks of the birch and the spruce. On a wet stump, Killian sat for a while and held his ankle gently in his hands, while the sun rose higher and the morning mist burned away. His shoes were burst and held together by dirt-caked strips of burlap, and his toes were so cold they were almost numb. Gage had had better shoes, but Killian had left them, just as he left the blanket. He had tried to pray over Gage's body, but had not been able to remember any of the Bible except a sentence that went, "Mary kept all these things, pondering them in her heart." And that was from the birth of Jesus, and no thing to say over a dead man. It would be a warm day, although when Killian at last stood, it was still cool in under the shadows of the pines. He followed the tracks until his ankle was throbbing too badly to go on, and he had to sit on the embankment and rest again. It was swelling badly now, and when he put weight on it, he felt a bitter, electric pain shoot through the bone. He had always trusted Gage to know when to jump. He had trusted Gage to know everything. There was a white cottage away through the trees. Killian only glanced at it and looked back at his ankle, but then he lifted his head and looked into the trees again. On the trunk of a nearby pine, someone had snapped away some bark and carved an X in the wood and rubbed coal in the X so it would stand out black. There were no secret hobo marks like some said, or if there were, Killian didn't know what they were, and neither had Gage. An X like that, though, sometimes meant you could get something to eat at a place. Killian was strongly aware of the tight emptiness in his stomach. He walked unsteadily through the trees to the yard behind the cottage, and then hesitated at the edge of the woods. The paint was peeling and the windows were obscured by grime. Close against the back of the house was a garden bed.